you lot, Miller Corner here, welcome back once again, and today I'm continuing my work on rebuilding and improving the Super Seicento, but with this little thing I'm doing, I'm actually taking inspiration from a recently decided dream car of mine, specifically the Abarth 695 Biposto, the kind of hardcore track and race ready version of a standard Abarth 595. Specifically, however, of the 695 Biposto, the version I'm looking at is the Record Edition, which is in bright yellow. It's in fact Ferrari Giallo Modena yellow, the same as my other dream car, the Ferrari 360. Now in that yellow Record Edition Biposto, they also have the badge with the badge kind of wings coming off of it, and the door mirrors painted in satin black, and I absolutely love the look of that car. I love the way the yellow is really bright, and then you've got the nice dark contrast of the carbon fibre everywhere on the car, and of course the black door mirrors and the black badge surround. Well, since the whole of the Super Seicento is currently in pieces, I have got the luxury of being able to take my time with the reassembly. I thought, why not make it exactly how I want it? So I've got the bonnet badge and I've got the wing mirrors, and today I'm going to be painting both of these satin black, but in the process I'm going to show you how to paint door mirrors, badges and other plastic pieces on your car. So without further ado, let's get to it. To respray your mirrors and trims, you'll need plenty of masking tape to cover what you don't want painted, some sort of sandpaper to rub down and key the existing paint on the trim, for reference this is 500 grit, and plastic primer to give the paint a good surface to stick to. If you're painting mirror caps and plastic trims, be sure to get plastic specific primer, as it works best with it and ensures a perfect surface to paint onto. Next you need paint, and in this case the infamous satin black returns once again, and I've got a whole can of it for this job. That might seem like overkill, but it's better to have too much than not enough. Finally, there's the lacquer or clear coat, whose finish type will fully determine how your paint looks when it's finished. I chose this semi-matte lacquer, which is another way of saying satin, as that's the finish that I'm after. Check carefully though, as satin paint can end up looking gloss if you pick up the wrong lacquer. With everything ready, the first step is cleaning. Exterior trims on a car are constantly exposed to weather and road grime, so a spray of cleaning fluid and a thorough wipe down with a cloth ensures that the plastics are spotless. Any dirt or grime left behind will show up in your final paint, so take the time and do it properly. Next up is masking, yet another time consuming but vital step. Mask over everything you don't want painted, and if need be, overlap and cut it down carefully with a blade, as I'm doing here. There's nothing wrong with layering up the masking to make sure that it's covered, and don't worry about this taking time. It took me over half an hour to mask up just the mirrors and the badge, but the end result reflects the quality of your preparation. When you think you've masked up fully, double and triple check to be sure. Once there's paint on the rubber or the mirror glass, there's no going back. Once I'm certain that I've thoroughly masked up every single area that I want covered, it's on to rubbing down. Using the sandpaper, you need to get the surface completely smooth and remove any shine from it. It takes time to make sure the entire surface is rubbed down completely, and you do have to make it look worse before it gets better, but this is a crucial step. If there's still some shine left in places or the sanding is uneven, your final paint finish will most likely be patchy and there's almost no way to save it. Take your time to make sure that the entire surface is smooth and dull, running a finger over it to make sure that it's uniform. Once you're happy the paint has been entirely rubbed down evenly, blow all the sanding dust off, and after all this prep, it's finally on to painting. With the mirrors and badge secured in some cardboard, which also protects the brickwork around it, we'll start with primer. Give it a good shake and test on the card before spraying it on. Start with a light dust coat made up of short, sharp shots. With this first coat, it doesn't even matter if you can still see a bit of the original colour underneath it. It's just about getting the first dusting base coat on. After about 10 minutes drying time, continue with 2 or 3 more coats of primer. Get slightly closer and slightly thicker each time, but don't get too close or you'll get runs in the primer. With the final coat given around 15 minutes to dry, make sure the cover of the primer is consistent and thick all over. If you're happy with it, it's time to move on to the actual paint. Similarly with the primer, the paint should be shaken well and tested before use. Also, as with the primer, the first coat is just a dusting to get it covered. Around 4 inches away is a good distance, and as you can see with this mirror cap particularly, I'm not going heavy with the first coat, hence why it actually appears dark grey on camera. Make sure you cover every side and every angle of the trim each coat to ensure a uniform finish, and as with the primer, around 10 minutes of drying time between coats. Gradually build up the thickness over 3 or 4 coats, but be very careful not to get too close or too heavy with it, as that would mean potential runs in the paint. Don't be tempted to do any more than short and sharp shots, as the longer and the heavier you spray, the more paint you waste and the more likely you are to get runs in it. If like me you're going with satin, don't worry if it looks glossy to begin with, as it'll dry satin and the lacquer itself will ensure that it doesn't have a shine to it. With the 4th and final coat done, the plastic pieces are entirely and uniformly black, and they're left for around half an hour to dry out fully. Next it's onto lacquer, and by now you know the drill. Shake the can well and test it on the cardboard. Annoyingly, my chest mounted GoPro didn't capture the lacquering very well, but it's much the same story as with the primer and the paint. Gradually build up from a dust coat, getting slightly thicker and slightly closer each time, but be very careful to avoid runs, and again make sure you cover every angle and every side equally. As the lacquer is what protects the paint from scratches, chips and sun and weather damage, don't be afraid to do 4 or 5 coats of it in total to maximise the protection. With the lacquer laid on thick and completely covering the trims, now comes the drying. Make sure they're inside with no exposure to dust, dirt or weather, and ideally leave for up to 24 hours or even longer to toughen it up. It is the next day, so it's time to demask them. Here they are, masked up. They still look awesome. So without further ado, let's unmask. Unmasking takes just as much care as prep does, so make sure you don't charge into it or you might damage the paint, which makes all your hard work for nothing. Carefully pry at the tape to find an end and slowly and gently peel it off. Peel away from the paint itself if you can, as pulling towards it only takes one slip up and it might take the paint off with it. If you have to use a blade to cut into the tape like I do, then use it for as little time and tape as possible. Less blade use means less chance of damaging the paint itself. Unmasking can take time, hence why I've sped this up, but eventually all the tape is off and the respray of the mirrors and the badge are complete. We've gone from this to this. You'll see them fitted to the car in next week's episode of Super Seicento Rebuild, but even just sitting there, they look awesome. So there you have it, how to paint door mirrors, badges and pretty much any other pieces of plastic trim for your car. And I have to say, this is possibly one of the best bang for buck things you can do to your car. With just a couple of hours of work and around 25 quid in primer, paint and lacquer, you can transform the look of your car, even by just changing the colour of a few little details like these. Thanks so much for watching the video, everybody. I really appreciate it. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a big old thumbs up and also subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you are notified when a new Miller Corner video is released. But for now, thanks once again for watching, everybody, and have a brilliant rest of your day. See you soon, and have a good one.